Good afternoon. This is your Grandpa Roger. I'm going to take my glasses off. I had my cataract surgery, so I don't need them to do much anymore. So I am going to make the video without my glasses. Anyhow, this is on the occurrence of the 50 years ago. It's on the very close to the 4th of July in 2026. So I thought I would make a little oral history. It's ahead of the 4th of July, so it can be delivered on the 4th of July. So this is about 1997, the 4th of July, which would have been 50 years ago. It's also on the same time frame as the 1776, 250 years ago, that the United States celebrates the 4th of July. So most of this talk is going to be about uh, what happened on the 4th of July, and most of that centered at a location at 570 Northwest Birdsdale. It's the home of Daryl and Evelyn Fleming, your grandparents. Your grandparents. So, and the one thing I remember about 570 Northwest Birdsdale was that it was a really nice house for the location, and it had a very nice pool in the back. So a lot of the things centered around that pool and the backyard. Now, Gene and I and Nick and Amy lived in Gresham, but Connie and Larry and Paula John did not live in the community. They lived in many different parts, and so they would come to Gresham for holidays. And I am assuming that they came on the 4th of July. They might have come at Christmas, they might have come at Memorial Day, other times, but there were two girls from the Flemings, and then four grandchildren. Another thing that I remember about the 4th of July, uh, beyond the swimming, and I believe all of the grandchildren learned to swim in Grandpa Darrell's, Grandpa Fleming's pool. I also remember the food, and there were two things that stand out from the food aspect. Um, One of them was flank steak. So Evelyn was famous for the flank steak. Somebody would barbecue it, but uh, she would marinate it for days ahead of time. You would then cook it rapidly on the barbecue, and then slice it thin. And we wouldn't necessarily cook it all at once, so you would always have some warm flank steak if you wanted it. Medium rare, usually it had a very pink inside. There was a dessert that she made also. Frozen raspberry. I think it was pie. I don't know exactly. I know it was in a crust and made in a blender or something like that. I didn't get into the making of it. I just knew it was delicious. And we were used to having this frozen raspberry. I'll say it was a pie. Maybe somebody can correct me if it was something different. So now I'm going to take, it's not going in a straight line, but that's okay. I'm an old man. So Paula and John were on a regular school system, so they were usually out all summer. Nick and Amy, at this point in their schooling, were on a year-round school, and the year-round school was put in so that the Gresham Grade School District, I believe, maybe the high school too, would not have to build more buildings. You could get four classrooms by going 9 weeks on, 3 weeks off, and rotating the time the students were in school. You could get 4 classrooms of students in 3 physical classrooms. So you'd be in school for 9 weeks, have your 9 weeks, do your studies, have your end of 9 weeks, and then you'd have 3 weeks off. During that 3 week period, uh, you were able to take a vacation. It also meant that you didn't have to go all the time on summer vacations. You could take vacations when not everybody was taking a vacation. So that's what Nick and Amy grew up was in year-round school. Uh, Worked well for us. The first few years we were on it, our kids were on the same track, so they had the same vacations. It also meant that they had the same teacher. If Nick had Mrs. McVeigh for the first grade, Amy also had Mrs. McVeigh for the first grade. So we switched. Later on, we said, no, we don't want to do this anymore. We want to have different teachers. And so then they were on different tracks, but there was always about a 10-day, maybe 2 week period in the summer where everybody was out. It also meant that the grandkids, Nick or Amy, could go with one of the grandpas or grandmas or somewhere on their own for their own break. So that's a digression. Now I'm going to take another digression to talk about uh, Grandpa Fleming, Darrell Fleming. He was on my mind because he was born on May 29th of 1920. So that's about the time that I was working on what I wanted to say. And so, knowing it was his birthday, I have been putting some time in thinking about the things that he has said. So, one of the things I remember him saying that I want to pass on is that with your hands, it is impractical or impossible to make enough money to really have a good living. If there's only 40 or however many hours a week you work, and you just cannot create enough wealth. So uh, he wanted to look for other kinds of employment besides cutting trees or whatever, where you were just a laborer. So, and one of the things he talks about was he wanted to get into airplane building, and he took a bus ride down to Long Beach, California, from Spokane. And I don't know if you all remember this, but the Highway 84 goes along the Columbia River. Before 84 was put in, there was a windy road that got you from Spokane down to Gresham, down to Portland, and then down to Long Beach. So we took a bus down to Long Beach to learn how to rivet. Uh, he went right by Gresham, went on this bus ride, which he probably stopped for a break, maybe in Troutdale rather than Gresham, but somewhere along there. So that was his foyer, or his going to learn how to make airplanes. So during the war, he never was drafted, uh, and he always got a deferment because he was making bombers at Boeing. He was riveting airplanes. You don't put them together with, you couldn't weld them. The weld would not hold the aluminum well enough, so you had to rivet them. So that's what he did during the war. Then after the war, he moved to Bremerton, and he and Evelyn had a small store, a grocery store, again on the auspices that he wanted to be in some kind of business, something where he could multiply his work. So at that same time, Standard Oil was being forced to break up. And so at that time, the oil was sent by rail cars from the refineries to different parts of the country. and they had little along the railroad track. They had big tanks where the railroad cars would deliver the oil, and then it'd be taken to the gas stations and the farmers and the people that needed the oil for heat. So uh, he wanted to buy one of those distributorships that was being made available. So he borrowed money from his sister, but it was really from his sister's husband, Ernie. So he figured out how to pay for I think it was more for the inventory than it was for the business. But they wanted somebody who knew the oil business. So, and he had experience in the retail, but didn't have experience in the oil business. So, a friend who had daughters the same age as Gene and Connie, Pete Zandell, was a sold petroleum products. He sold oil. So Pete had the experience that the people were looking for, and Daryl's sister Melba had the money, so they actually bought the distributorship in Gresham, Oregon. They moved here. I don't. Well, they were. I'm going to say 55, but I don't know exactly. Somewhere like that to set up Fleming and Zandell Oil Distributor on Burnside and First Street. Now back to the pool because the pool and the new house that they had on Birchdale were byproducts of the business. They also had got new cars or new to them, new used cars every year. So back to the pool. The pool was built by men in Gresham, and they pooled their resources. So every summer, the first person that did it, they built the forms, and then they would put it in the first pool, and then the next summer they would put it in a different person's house. So the Mars, the Youngs, the Zandells, the Flemings. I don't know the rest of the people who had their pools built by each other. Darrell was proud of that pool. He kept it spotless, cleaning it and polishing it, and then making a very nice pad around the outside. He also put in solar heating so it wouldn't quite be so cold when you went swimming. So, and as I said, all of our grandchildren learned, all of Paula, John, Nick, and Amy, I believe, learned to swim in that pool. Another thing I remember from the 4th of July at the Flemings were sparklers. We always had to, it's a long, darkness doesn't come quickly at that time of the year. It's a long work to light a long time. So we had to wait until it got dark, and nobody had firecrackers, at least on that piece of property. Um, and so we had sparklers, but not firecrackers, and there were usually fireworks at the fairgrounds, which would have been a little ways away that you could see from the top of Birchdale. So the fireworks were controlled by the city or at a different place. So the 4th of July was all about family and all about one location, the Flemings on 570 Northwest Birchdale. So now it's a new way. It's been 250 years in our country. It's been 50 years since I talked about this one. And we're all about doing the 4th of July in a new way, in a different way. But I wanted to take the opportunity to chat a little bit about what it was like in 1976 when we were celebrating the 4th of July and other holidays at the Flemings on Birchdale. I wish you all well. I'm going to sign off here. Not exactly sure how this is working. It's my first try at a video in a long time. So we're going to take this to be the end. See you later.